Hey guys, so the following conversation is between me and Sanket Patil, and because of the in depth conversations that we had and we dealt into different topics, the length of the video was really big, so I decided to put it in two parts. The part one will describe about his journey growing up in India, navigating through challenges, being from a vernacular medium to transitioning into the industry of engineering, figuring out his own path, and then eventually making a decision to come to masters. And the second part is going to be mainly focusing on masters and life beyond, the challenges that a student faces when he is abroad, and different work life balance challenges after you start working at a different company in a new country. So without any further ado, let's dive right in. This is the Indian perspective, and we have with us today Sanket Patil joining us from Virginia. Welcome, Sanket.
Thank you so much, Abhimanyu. Thank you for having me.
To tell something about Sanket, Sanket started his journey back in India, Mumbai. He's from Navi Mumbai, Panvel, and he started his journey way back. And he did his undergrad in India, which is the bachelor's in engineering from Mumbai University. He then went on to do his CDAC, that is a postgraduate diploma, and then he worked for a few companies in India, and then he came to US, did his masters in engineering in IT, and then he went on to work at a few companies. Now he works at MicroStrategy in Virginia, and that's his journey. So welcome, Sanket, and thanks for taking your time, man.
Thank you so much. You know more about me than myself, man.
Yeah, I did some of the research, but it's
No,
glad to have you
definitely.
here. I know Sanket since like past 6 years,
Six
and
years, yes.
it's been a wonderful journey. He's an amazing person. So I want you guys to dive into his life through his words and take some learnings out of it. So Sanket, tell me something about your journey, like starting out from Navi Mumbai, where it is, at that time I don't think Navi Mumbai was as developed as it is today,
Yeah, it
and
was.
then from that point to coming all the way to US in the capital, right? Washington DC is
Hmm.
almost is the capital, but you stay near the area. So how do you
Right.
feel like the journey has been? And did you imagine like you starting off from Navi Mumbai, you will reach at this stage?
No, I never I never imagined that I would be here at certain point of my life. Because I never got that much of exposure that okay, some of the folks from town like Mumbai, they already knew about okay, they are going to go for masters, they are going to study there, and they're going to have their life over there. So, but yeah, going back to my childhood, I was notorious and I was studious as well. Like I sort of like always strive for that balance. Uh, Good student, like always used to be in top five, and also used to be with backbenchers, doing all the fun that they used to do. So that was my case. Slowly, as I started to understand myself, that's when I started like carving that path. Okay, and then based on my abilities and like all those opportunities that came along the way, I just I just sought behind them and then thought, okay, what would work good for me, and then I started like grabbing them and just went with the flow.
That's interesting, man. It's
Hmm.
interesting because you started off your education, like your primary education was in Marathi medium, right?
Yes,
And
correct.
how was it, being in that background? I think there comes a point where you kind of limit your ambitions because you feel
Hmm.
like you don't know English, and there is some kind of
Yeah,
a inferiority complex surrounding that mindset, right? At that very early age, because you feel like you don't know English, you can't jump different barriers that other people can, kind of a thing. So how did
right.
you overcome that barrier within your education background, and how did you make the transition from Marathi to English?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't something that I did directly. I definitely struggled. Like until 10th, everything was in Marathi medium. Even the subjects that you had, like algebra and geometry, for us it was Bijganit and Bhumiti. So,
Yeah.
so that was the start. Like, and I used to study and think in Marathi, or I still do it, sometimes. But from that point to 11th, 12th, entirely in English, like changing the environment, it was sort of like a setback for me. Uh, I had to struggle. I failed. I had my first test of failure in 11th standard, where like I failed my unit test. We used to have unit test back then, and I got good marks. Like it was like a reputed college in junior college in Panvel. So getting admission over there, it was sort of like you had to have a good marks. So I got in there, and there was a class which is full with like all those people who have like good marks. And among them, I was the only one who got failed. So who was yeah. So principal called me and then called my parents, my dad. Like he's like, so that was the conversation. She was Marathi. So
Yeah, you
like,
can
काय
speak
झालं?
Marathi. Yeah, we're
Oh,
gonna.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, even better. So the principal, like she was having conversation with, अरे काय झालं या मुलाला? He is so bright आणि आता fail वगैरे होतं exam मध्ये. And like she was asking those questions, and then for me is like नाही कळत. कुछ कारण सगळं डोक्यावरून जात होतं त्या टायमाला, and nothing, like everything whatever I used to do was sort of like trying to understand की नवीन language, नवीन environment, because being from Marathi medium and semi-government school, like environment is different. Like you connect with people from different set of uh, environment, and then एक connection असतं, like तुझं एक sort of like हिडन लँग्वेज असते तुमच्यामध्ये, जी ते ज्या मीडियम मध्ये शिकता येतात, प्रॉब्ली लिंगो जो बोलतो आपण. सो दॅट वॉज मिसिंग. सो आय वॉज finding difficult. First thing was studying, and the other thing was like making new friends. So everything came together. And like so, 11th, 12th was like एक्झाम कशा पास करायचं. सो आय स्टार्टेड रट्टाफाईंग एव्हरीथिंग, की हा चला रट्टा मारा आणि जेवढे मार्क्स येतात तेवढे करा. बट ऑब्विसली दॅट डझंट गिव्ह यू द क्वालिटी ऑफ मार्क्स. फॉर सम पीपल इट माइट, because they have like that photographic memory. They can like keep that thing in their mind and then just go and like blabber out on their paper. So it didn't work with me, because I usually try to understand, go in the depth of the subject, and then if it clicks, then I'll be able to understand whatever the problem that comes in my path. That was my thinking ability, but eventually it hampered my marks 11, 12. And slowly, I was sort of like, he was such a bright student until 10th. And then I started like जसं काय मराठीत ते टोमणे वर्ड म्हणून आहे, टॉन्ट वगैरे. सो आय स्टार्टेड गेटिंग दोज, की काय झालं, लाईक ही इज गोइंग असा वाया चाललाय, ही इज गोइंग लाईक हिज टॅलेंट इज गेटिंग वेस्टेड, अशा वेळेला
He's
गोष्टी
getting derailed because of some
डिरेल.
other thing. Yeah.
Yes. So that was sort of kind of had impact on my self-esteem and like the thing that I was doing. So it took a while to gather everything back. So after 12th, I had like average marks in 12th, and we had like those entrance exams, CET and AIEEE. So I had like again okayish marks, because obviously like you can't just like in entrance exam you can't just like gratta everything and go there, because you have to solve those things, like understand all the nitty-gritties. So the marks were average. So parent was still like hopeful that okay, this guy will go to some good college. So they asked me that, do you want to take a drop or like break and then reappear for entrance exam. म्हटलं की ठीक आहे, करू शकतो. बट अगेन एवढं फोर्सफुली झालं नाही माझ्याकडून, बिकॉज ऑब्विसली तेव्हा सेल्फ इस्टीम वगैरे खाली होता.
बरोबर.
वॉज डुईंग माय लेवल बेस्ट at that certain, like if it was a perfect environment, ते जमून आलं असतं, but it wasn't. Because of all the situations, like जे काय गोष्टी कानावर पडायच्या किंवा कुठून, like even relatives for that matter, I used to get taunted by them. So त्यामुळे जरा ते कुठेतरी कोप अप करणं डिफिकल्ट. बट हा लाईक इव्हेंच्युअली तेवढे मार्क्स होते की इंजिनिअरिंग मध्ये ऍडमिशन मिळेल, आणि मला त्या टायमाला काही माहिती नव्हतं की कुठे जायचंय, काय करायचंय. घरात मोठा भाऊ वॉज इंजिनियर, दॅट वॉज इट. आणि त्या टायमाला प्रॉब्ली सगळ्यांच्या आजूबाजूला मेंटॅलिटी तीच होती की आयदर यू गो फॉर टू बिकम अ डॉक्टर, or engineer,
Hmm.
maximum architect. So that was the path we used to have. मग त्याप्रमाणे इंजिनिअरिंगला जे काय एफर्ट चालू होते त्याच डिरेक्शनने गेलो. And then engineeringला I got an admission. Like it was okayish, like below average college. Nothing fancy about it. Just did my bachelor's in instrumentation engineering from
Hmm.
there. Yeah. So transitioning from until I joined engineering, I was still struggling like to get hold of that uh, speaking and understanding English and
Hmm.
thinking in English, specifically when you need like analytical thinking
Hmm.
about like, especially if you are from engineering background, you need to have that analytical thinking
Correct.
about like solving those problems, right? So it took me a while, around 2 3 years. Uh, Web series, TV shows,
Correct.
movies, they helped me a lot. I still like till this point, I never, that is totally wrong on my side, but I never put in extra effort to understand how English, how is the grammar of that English language. I know the grammar, like the Vyakarana of Marathi language pretty well.
Yep.
I have a good hold on it, but English साठी, it was sort of like for me, I was a bit terrified to face that beast. But I found another way that like, okay, watching web series and watching movies, you basically grasp those things like,
Yep.
okay, this is the pattern, like this is how you speak.
Correct.
And since then, like as more and more I was exposed to all those folks who were speaking more and more English, like it became sort of like, okay, it's
Yeah.
not that a big problem
Correct.
after that. Yeah.
It's interesting because most of the like from my experience, most of the people who also come from English background don't really understand the grammar of English, and because even though we go to English medium schools,
Right.
not a lot of kids interact in English. So this it's just getting used to a particular
Used to it.
language
Yeah.
from the get go. Probably gives you an advantage in additional higher
Right.
education, but that doesn't, like you said, that doesn't really tell whether your ability to do a certain
Yeah,
problem
definitely.
is right or wrong, right? And your example proves us that even though you struggled at that point, you were able to adapt, and then you went on to do a good job. I mean, further, where you actually got interest in engineering and how to
Yeah.
solve analytical problems. You took on that challenge, and you went on to become the instrumentation engineer. Now, when you went to the instrumentation engineering, right? And you said that you didn't know exactly what path you need to follow, and because you had a senior brother, like who could guide you, it was easier for you. But in terms of what field to choose and stuff like that, but then you decided to change it. And how did you come to that conclusion that this is not working for me, and why did you go to that path and explore the opportunities in some organization like CDAC?
Right. Right. So म्हणूनच मी हसलो. Like when you
Yeah.
mentioned like you did your bachelor's in instrumentation. Yeah, I did like completed that. And also my brother, he is an instrumentation engineer. Uh, Though at that point, even he did not know what is instrumentation engineering. Even if you ask somebody now, like if they are doing instrumentation engineering, and if you ask them like what is instrumentation engineering, I am 80% sure. Uh, Not talking about like IIT Bombays and
Yeah, yeah.
NITs and all those things. Like talking from the totally like those below average and average B and C grade
70% of
college.
the
Yeah,
engineering
seven, like
population. Yeah,
from the place where we come from.
exactly.
So even they won't know, they won't be able to answer what is instrumentation engineering. So that was the situation with me. I had like average marks in CET. So my brother and father, like they only knew about what are the evergreen branches that we have in engineering. At that point, they had like this term that okay, IT comms was like just booming around the corner back in 2009. It was well established, but it wasn't that much like the way
Yeah.
we see right now. So they were like, okay, either mechanical, electrical, or instrumentation because my brother did it. Like that is the whole reason I chose instrumentation, nothing else. There
Mm-hmm.
was no discussion, there was no counseling, nothing.
Mm.
And the college was like very close to my house, just like 10-minute ride from local. So that is another contributing factor to
Correct.
go with that. How I landed up, like from like or transition from instrumentation to computer, different story. So one thing, it is instrumentation is very interesting branch. Like if someone is listening and like they are trying to figure out and they have decided that they want to do engineering, probably yeah, you should look it up and see what instrumentation engineers can like they are capable of doing. I was not aware about that. Like later on, I was just curious what people do and like how this branch is perceived. I got to know that okay, this is what it is. So it is very interesting. But I wasn't sort of like educated back then by anyone. Even I did not like we didn't had those avenues. So I just was doing for the sake of doing it. But we have like courses in first semester and second semester. So one of them was like computer programming, and like it was CP1 and CP2.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to, and I found it interesting because I was able to understand the concepts and like all those programming paradigms very naturally. I don't know why. Then look back at it in hindsight. Probably I didn't had or we didn't had like computers at my home until 12th. So I always had that fascination with that thing. That okay, playing games on it and all those things. So maybe because of that, I don't know. But like it was some sort of like natural ability of like thinking analytically and like having that logic and then translating those into lines,
Mm.
words, and then into the sort of like a program, which was sort of like a magic. You just write some bunch of words and keywords, and then it will do stuff like it will automate stuff for you. So it sort of like clicked somewhere with me, and then it stayed
Mm.
for rest of the year. And then I started my third semester in instrumentation because after first year it was like go to your branches and do your own shit.
Correct, correct. For people who are not in engineering background, the first year has the sorting of all subjects from all branches. So there is mechanics, there is electronics, there is computer programming, and this is for all the branches. So when you start your engineering career, you are expected to have information, basic information of all these
Mhm.
subjects, and then on the second year onwards, you get specialized subjects depending on the course that you have taken.
Of course, from third year, like first of all, I like by the first year, I had made up my mind. Okay, I want to do computer or IT. So I tried to switch my branch, but they were asking for some sort of like donation. That okay, you give us this much amount of money, and then we'll reserve a seat for you.
Mhm.
I like no, like my family was like middle class family. They were
Mhm.
sort of like well to do, but not that well to do that they'll just like shed out 8 or 10 lakhs just out of
Just
pocket
to switch
for
the branch.
just to switch a branch.
Wow.
So it was sort of like a decision that I had to make. No, let's just continue with whatever I'm learning, and then we'll figure it out. So since third year, since second year, I started taking active part in those like extracurricular activities, but I was behind the scene. I was the one who was like on the team of managing those events, not on the participant side.
Correct.
So during that, I sort of found avenues to be in touch with that computer programming side of things, like designing websites, then designing apps. Then also I tried out like graphic designing because I sort of had that edge since the childhood of like be like that creative edge. So I still like things which are aesthetically pleasing.
Hmm.
I'll I'll probably create something aesthetically pleasing or I'll appreciate the beauty of it. So this is how I look at the stuff. So create generating that digital art which portrays probably banners and like the visiting cards or logos. I used to do that like for fun. And then that translated into website designing for events. Then translated. into more and more such website designing, building, app building. Like I started learning Android development by myself, because at that time there was a boom of like creating Android apps.
Hmm.
You Because more and more people were getting exposed to Android phones, and uh, every developer who was like well established, they were creating their own apps. Like businesses were built on like creating apps.
Correct.
But I was just like learning. I just made some Q's apps and like
This was all out of
some
curiosity. It was not something that you
just
were
yes.
told
It
to do
wasn't part
or
of my academics.
yeah.
It wasn't part of my academics or nothing. Nobody told me to do it. It was even I tried to create some apps with few of my friends, but it didn't went in a good like on a good path. But yeah, we learned a lot during that process. Like that was back in engineering. So yeah, this is how I established stuff that okay, this is what I want to do at least
Hmm.
for certain period of time. Like let me just test the waters. So I just side by side I was just completing my engineering. I was failing at some subjects. I was getting passed. I was getting good marks. Like so it was happening consistently until the end of my bachelor's. But after the bachelor's, like first thing is like I did not study instrumentation thoroughly. So I was
Hmm.
getting very average marks, below average marks, I would say.
Hmm.
So another thing, transitioning from non-IT or non-computer branches to computer branch is not that difficult, first of all.
Hmm.
It's just that I am kind of like a personality. If I enjoy something doing it, I'll do it. I can't do something out of somebody's asking me to do. Like, okay,
Hmm.
if because I want to uh, get placed or I want to get to switch or appear for that campus placement, I'll study hard, study my ass off
Hmm.
a subject which I don't like.
Hmm.
For example, in instrumentation, there were many subjects. Like I wasn't liking any of them. I was just studying for the sake of passing. That okay, I should not fail at least.
Hmm.
Just having that consistency. So that is the reason I got less marks and I was not eligible to appear for those campus placements, wherein it
Hmm.
was a cakewalk to transition from non-IT branch to IT and IT industry, because they used to hire in bulk.
Hmm.
TCS companies like TCS, Infosys, L&T Infotech, they used to come for campus placement. I wasn't eligible for any of them, so I did not appear for any of the exam. But I know, okay, I wanted to go in that route, so I started scavenging all those avenues. कुठे जाऊ शकतो and
Hmm.
what we can do. So there were like few courses back then. Like one is provided by Seed Infotech, the other one for NIIT. And it was something like that. They were teaching like specifically Java courses and specifically .NET courses or Android development. Later on, I realized it was just money making scheme. I was just like त्यावेळी एकदमच असं वाचलं होतं त्यातून. But
Hmm.
yeah, one of my brother's friend, he did something similar. Uh, that like he was from instrumentation branch and he switched to software industry. So he mentioned like was definitely everyone was worried. I just completed my bachelor's and I was just sitting at home,
Hmm.
doing nothing. And like they were worried that okay, now it's time you to find a job
Correct.
and figure out the stuff. So even everyone was in part of that journey back in my family. So even my brother did. He knew about my situation. He suggested like his friend that okay, he should definitely check out CDAC. And CDAC is just to let you guys know, like whoever is watching, CDAC is government funded department which operates all our supercomputers, like from ISRO and all those like BARC. Like you will have those supercomputers. They are built by CDAC. So they also run like this postgraduate diploma in computer subjects or like different domains, like probably IT security, development, like and then advanced development in advanced computing, data analytics, all those things. Like even they have started something blockchain and like all those things. So at that point, I said like, okay, that one particular stream of that CDAC was like, I found it, okay, this is what will be very good fit for me. So I appeared for, so they also have an entrance exam. So I appeared for that exam, got good ranking, and I got a good institute in Mumbai. So they have like different institutes across India, I guess around like 5 or 7. So among them, just like IITs, like if you say name like IIT Kharagpur, it is one of the top, and then IIT Bombay, and then all those things.
Mhm.
Though every each and every center, they are good. They are providing you enough opportunities and enough education. But yeah, some institutes or some locations have advantage over other. So I got into a good institute location, that was Vita Juhu, and that is where I started actually getting exposure to all the entire paradigm of computer engineering. Because engineering and like total fundamental, like what is this, like algorithm and data structures, like software engineering and all those programming languages. Like just learning Java is not enough, but understanding how programming languages work is very important, and then you can learn all those languages. So all those things, like all those basic necessities, like I was able to absorb during my CDAC quiz, and that laid down the foundation
Mm.
for me to travel, like, or like expand my horizons into different avenues later
That's really interesting because the story that you described, it is unique to you, but a lot of people go through that phase where they are trying to figure out where they need to go with
on.
with their career, and some of them are unable to figure it out because they don't have a family member guiding them, or they
Right,
don't have
right.
access to people who can guide them through what would be the right path. And like your story describes, there was not a easy, straightforward path. You had to go through
Yeah.
zigzags. You had to find different interesting things in your extracurricular activities itself, like
Mhm.
building apps and different things. You tried a lot of things and you figured it out for yourself that this is my natural inclination, of this is the skill set that I want to have, and then you went on to pursue CDAC, which would enhance your skill set to a level which makes you ready for getting into the professional world, right? So in this journey, if someone is trying to navigate and they are unable to figure it out, what would your advice be to such people who haven't yet figured it out, but they also want to do something that they like and also something that they can get paid for?
Right, right. This is totally out of my own experience. Every individual is different. Like they know what are their strengths. They know their, like, deep down. Uh, every person know their shortcomings. It's just that they never evaluated. Or okay, where are their shortcomings? They are probably afraid of like figuring that out. But that is going to be my first suggestion. And second suggestion would be uh, that will be on my sort of like own journey, but I find it very universal. Just try out the things that you want to try out. Like if something is like sort of creating that tingling sensation in you, that okay, I want to try this out, go ahead and try it out. And worst thing, the worst thing will come out of that is like you will know that okay, you don't like it or you
Correct.
like it. The good part, it like if you find that okay, this is something that I like, then like hold close to it.
Mhm.
Just keep it with you, and keep trying all those things surrounded by that particular thing, or like the new things that you want to try.
Mm.
And eventually you will figure out, or like you will stumble upon something that okay, this is somewhere, like this is something that I have in as a position which I can utilize to make money, or just like figure out okay, if someone is offering you money because like this is what I'm doing, someone is offering me the money for the skills that I bring on the table. uh, so basically I'm working for an organization or corporate, but it is not necessary for that will be sort of like it will work for each and every individual. Probably someone is good at like origami,
Mm.
so you can be a consultant, like where companies they are trying to make shipping boxes like more optimal. You can like or you can become a part of their organization, but you need to figure out that okay, this is what you like, and to figure that out you need to try out more the stuff, and
Correct.
then discard or approve the stuff that
Mhm.
you don't like and approve the stuff that you keep liking.
Any comment on the fact that where we come from? Basically, we are when we fail at certain things. Fail is just a temporary word, but whatever objectives you're trying to achieve, right? Sometimes it doesn't work out. So that objective, if it is not achieved, it seems like there is a taboo around failure. And the method that you recommended means like trying a few things, and
Trying few
the
things,
first draft is not gonna be like a beautiful Mona Lisa painting, but
yeah.
but the process of getting there goes through painful failures, if I may say so. Do you think people should forget that and try it out any which ways? And where do they manage the failure aspect of it, and how do they get past that?
I mean, there are multiple forces surrounded by you, and they will definitely, some of those forces are good in a way that they'll keep guiding you in the right direction. Some of the forces they will try to pull you down,
Hmm.
and that's where failure, like the forces that trying to pull you down, that's where failure comes into the picture, because it becomes a thing that occupies your entire mind, and you just keep thinking about failure rather than thinking on the switch side of it. Okay, you failed at something, but let me just try to figure out where I was lacking in this. Like if you like something and still you failed at it, you can figure out that okay, this is where I was lacking, and this is the bridge that I have to bring it. So in my case it was like okay, I knew that okay, that I want to be part of software industry, but trust me, until now the folks who know software engineering, they'll know what I'm talking about. Until my engineering last, like though I have like created websites and Android apps, I was not sure what is constructor
Hmm.
and what is object and all those things. So
Correct.
though I didn't had that thing in basic necessary information, I knew this is where I wanted to go in that direction. Regardless of that, I kept on pushing myself, and the gap that I had, I was able to fulfill with the different avenues. That one avenue was like that seed infotech, and then NIIT, and then this is the best option that I had, CDAC. So I chose that. So this is what probably anyone who is in that journey can do. See what are the helping forces that you have, be with them. Probably they could be your friends, they could be your relatives, they could be your siblings, they could be your parents, and try to get like as much as support from them in order to evaluate that failure and bridge in those gaps. And also you need those negative forces who pull you down, because that gives you the like if you are sort of like a warrior mentality,
Hmm.
initially that, though it is, I don't know, it's debatable, it is wrong or right or wrong, but whatever rocks your boat, man. Like
Correct.
if you find that okay, I want to show them that okay, even I can be successful even after the failure, use that as a
Correct.
motivation.
Mm-hmm.
So everything, every negative and every positive has the other flip side of it. You need to choose which side you want to utilize.
Mm-hmm. As you mentioned about failures, and like you said, everything is not rosy, right? So there are ups and downs, and during the down period, breaking that negative cycle and focusing on things that help you grow, and having people around you who can support you and give you your space and time to get positive thoughts into your
Mhm.
own framework, and analyzing what that gap is. If it is important enough for you, you should be able to distance yourself from that situation and try to figure out what will get you to your destination. It may not
Correct.
happen on day 1, day 10, but it will happen on day 50 if you're at it. And it's easier said than done. Of course, we have all been
Definitely.
in phases where in the negative cycle you don't feel like anything is possible. But with time and with consistent effort, I think you should be able to get where you want to go. And that's what
Yeah,
Sanket's story tells us. So Sanket, now then you went on to start working at a company in India, and that was a different experience because we learn things in our labs and in our
right, right.
academics, which is very different from what we are exposed to in the industry. And when you went on to work and you started getting salary out of it, and that is a kick, like not a kick, but you start earning, and then from that point you deciding to switch your country and starting a new life in a new country with your master's ambition. How did that come about, and how difficult was it when you made that transition?
Yeah, I mean, for that, I'll take you little back. Uh, when I joined the CDAC. So I had mentioned that in bachelor's, I was not interested in instrumentation, right?
Mhm.
So I was what? So even that was also a good, valuable information that would have helped me to earn money, right? I was not interested in that valuable information. I was just skipping it. I was just ignoring it. At that point, I was becoming a magnet who has like opposite poles. I was just repelling that information. Now, fast forward to CDAC phase, same repellent magnet turned into a sponge. The same valuable information, but in different background. I was just absorbing like crazy. That okay, give me more, give me more. I was studying for 10 hours, 15 hours. Like I never even imagined myself doing that. And trying to understand all the nitty-gritties and trying to fa- face all those software paradigms like and understand. It was sort of like it never felt like I was putting more efforts because I was a sponge, just absorbing everything. So that thing that led me to that job. It was a good, basically, it was a good exposure for me, into a software industry as they had a very established code base. Until that point, I was writing my own stuff and like from scratch, and then deploying, then trying it out. But stuff that has been built by veterans and like the strong player of their own industry and understanding their code. It is not a cakewalk. I still remember I used to have like 50 or 100 tabs open in my sort of like on screen,
In your
uh,
browsers, yeah.
browsers and like my IDEs. IDE is basically development
Environment, yeah.
environment wherein you actually code. Because I wanted to like I had to understand in order to solve a issue. So that uh, helped me to understand like or get that exposure. And there I realized that okay, whatever the base that CDAC gave me, there is more and more to that. It is not the end. I have not yet arrived. I am still yet to learn. I was just knowing that okay, this is how you write a program. This is how you think programmatically. This is how you write for loop. This is how you write while loop. These are the algorithms. These are the data structures. But there was like more to it. Like it's not only about writing those scripts. It's not only about writing one file that will do the magic. It was everything together. So just to give one analogy, you work right, like you or me, we work individually, but we are also part of a society, and society together works and they achieve so many things. There are so many different aspects of the society. There is government, there are like some taxi walas, there are some vendors, like there is another whole unit who operates electricity, there is another whole unit who operates water bodies and all those things, and this is how we function as a society. So this is what I realize, like as an individual, I know what to do. But as a society, if you want to form a society in software paradigm, there are more to it. So how can I get that information? How can I learn those things? Like building a basically where I am going towards, like we're giving that analogy of society is how to build a system
Hmm.
which can be utilized by a larger audience at once without people breaking it. So basically, this is where that Kida started to eat my mind.
Hmm.
Okay, what are the different avenues? So I started scavenging those avenues. One avenue I found was MTech, doing MTech in computer engineering. That will definitely give me that ability that okay, this is how software is built or
Mhm.
system are built. So that was like I nobody told me to, like it was natural observation and natural thing, natural progression in the career that I had. That natural progression, it never stopped. It is still going on, ongoing. Like because there are now new avenues in software designing and software development. So I'm keep learning about that. But yeah, going back to that point, I was looking for trying to study for MTech and like for not for MTech but for GATE, which is the entrance exam for MTech. And I found that okay, this is not a kickbook. It is sort of like studying. It will definitely need a consistent studying of like 1 or 2 years just to crack that GATE exam. So one of my friend who is here in US, in Seattle. You also know him. Like he's a common friend, Tushar. Shout out to Tushar. He was my roommate back in Pune. He mentioned that okay, why don't you try for masters? And like at that point, I never thought about like leaving that country because of monetary situations. That okay, financially we didn't had that much of money. Even the CDAC that I did, I did out of taking education loan on my name itself. I paid that off within 2 or 3 months of salary that I was getting after my first job. So I like okay, let me just figure out that okay, uh, what are the things that I would need in order to have that opportunity. And I was questioning because I did not had like good acads. The little research that I did based on what I got to know that you need to have good acads, you need to publish some papers, you need to have good projects under you, you need to have good recommendations, and all those things. Like none of these things, I don't have it.
It's
The
like the
only
golden ticket thing, right? Like best case scenario is what I like to call it. So for people who are thinking about masters and all that, this comes across. Like you're going through your web and there are a lot of articles saying that this is what you need, that is what you need. But in
right,
the
right,
real world, there are 70% to 80% of the population who don't fit in these structures. They don't have average of more than 65 in their engineering, or
right.
we don't have like brilliant research papers and all that, because most of the colleges don't have this environment where publishing
Environment,
research papers is a thing, or coming up with some new idea and implementing it is a thing. So because of that, it still is possible for you to get an opportunity into some renowned university across the globe, and then figure out in that environment what you like, and tailor your career towards that path, and it's still possible. So what
right.
Sanket's story tells us is the golden ticket child always gets in, but there are more than
Yes,
80% of our population who want to do it, but are limited by, this is how, these are the only
this
people who get in
only people.
with the best possible scenario, but that is not the real thing.
Yeah, so I was still skeptical. And then I had a discussion with Tushar. After having that discussion, like he said, by the time he was already here. Like in this was the story back in 2015. He was already here. So he also had some relative or probably somebody who assured him that okay, you just come here because he was also worried about the financial situation and all those things. So he relayed the same information to me that okay, I took that as sort of like a advice from a well wisher. So I never questioned his motives, and I blindly believed whatever he mentioned. But along with that, I also did my research. Like I at least took around around 2 or 3 months to I did my research. I reached out to at least 100 or like at least 100 folks on LinkedIn
Wow.
to just to understand okay where like I was just blindly messaging them like it was a cold messaging. Some of them they replied, some of them it's probably might have went into their spam folder. So they replied that okay, they are doing good, like, and then they are earning good. They were able to pay off their loan. Like that gave me some sort of like a trust and comfort that okay. Uh, it all boils down to me, how much serious I am about this stuff, and how I'm going to pan out my studies. So I had that framework by that time, and then I said like, okay, let me just take this chance. That I don't want to have that regret that later on. Even like I knew that even if I keep continue working there, it will be a good trajectory for my career. I would have like eventually learned the like same amount of things, but in like probably it would have taken like more years just to reach there. So I knew that, but like, okay, let me just uh, take this chance. What the worst thing will happen is I'll lose out some money. That was my savings uh, for applications and like sending out all those things. So I started like working on that SOP, statement of purpose. That is what is the purpose
Mm,
of like me going to a university in the US, and
mhm.
what I want to study and all those things. Then letter of recommendation I got it from few of my professors. So I did went ahead and shortlisted some of the, and I had like decent GRE score, DRE and TOEFL. Uh, I actually went to one of the counselor with that score and all those things. He mentioned that, dude, because like just to throw in the information, I had like aggregate of 58% in throughout the engineering. In last year, I had like first class, but throughout the engineering, I had like 58%. That is second class, not even first class. So he mentioned that with these marks, you are not going to get like any admit. I was disheartened at on that day, and then like I'm like, ठीक है, नहीं मिला तो नहीं मिला. It's fine. It's not the end of the world. I'll just apply it and see what happens. I never thought about like Canada and Australia. I don't know why. Again, there was no one to
Mm,
guide me at that point.
yep.
And like even different countries. I just knew Tushar went here, so I just had that information, and I did my research in just US based universities. So, and I know by that time I had watched that Silicon Valley series, so I
Mm,
also got exposure that okay, this is what happened. This is what they usually do
yeah.
in US. So that thing I know that okay, it is good for the field that where I belong. So I just stick to that, and I applied for universities and I got admits. Like I applied for 10 universities. I got like 5 admits, out of which three were unconditional, like okay, straight away. For some of them were for computer science. I got IT from UNCC with specialization as software system design. So this is what I wanted to do. This is what I was envisioning. So I just chose to go ahead with IT and software system design, and this is how I landed in US after getting that admit.
That's pretty interesting, man. Because paving your own path and then betting so much money, I would call it
Mhm.
betting because you're taking a risk because you're taking a loan out of your own name.
Right,
And there are some institutes that provide you loan across some mortgage. And because some of them can't afford a mortgage or don't have something, they get it at an incredibly massive rate, like 13% or 14%
right, right,
interest on your loan, which is a heavy amount because the amount of your education comes around 20-25 lakhs, and 13% on that over the years, it's pretty huge bet. But
right.
having that confidence and trying to figure it out all by yourself is pretty commendable. Then how was your experience when you reached here?